Hey everyone, welcome to the React interview series, all React hooks revision within 1 hour. So in this particular video, we are going to cover all of these hooks. So we'll start with UseState, then we'll be learning UseEffect, UseContext, UseReducer, UseRef, UseLayoutEffect, UseMemo, UseCallback, and at the end we are going to finish with UseFetch, which will be a custom hook. Now this video is going to help you if you are having any React.js interview, so this will be kind of a revision. Alright, so before starting, so if you like this particular video, give a like, comment down, and please subscribe to my channel. Let's get started and good luck. Let's start with our first hook, and this is called UseState. So UseState hook is basically used to manage your component state. Now what is a state? So state is basically a piece of information that will change on doing something. So for example, if the user is performing any action, let's say they are clicking on a button or they are typing on any input or any text box, so your component state value will change. And whenever the state value will change, that changed or updated value you want to render in your UI. So in that case, you need to store that updated state somewhere. So that is the reason this UseState hook, what it will do, this will basically take a state variable and there will be a set state action which will update your state, and then you'll be basically getting the updated state that you can render in your UI. So let's see how we are going to do that. So for this one, you can see that I have a button and there is a text. Now on click of this button, I want to toggle this particular text. So how we can write UseState? Alright, so to use UseState, first we need to import it from React. So what we will do, so we'll do import something from React, and the name is UseState. Alright, now here you have to first initialize your UseState, or basically you have to take the state value. So here I'm taking this state variable. Now here basically you can take any name you want. So for example, because here we are toggling this particular text, so we will take this one as toggle text, and then this will be a state variable, and then there will be a set state method which will update this variable here. So here I'll do set toggle text. Now here we will use this UseState. Now here you can see that this will return a stateful value, and there is a function that will update this value. So this is the function, and this function will update this toggle text state variable here. So here in this UseState, you need to basically take an initial state. Now initial state can be anything. So it can be a boolean, it can be a string, it can be array, it can be object, it can be null, anything you can want. So for example, I will take initial state here. So I'll do initial state, and this will be, for example, because this is a boolean, so what I'm going to do, I'll do this one as false. So my initial state is a false. So here I'll copy this and I'll pass this one here. So that means this is my initial value. So first time this toggle text will be false. So let's see what will happen if I now simply log here toggle text. Let's save it, and now let's open our console. So you can see that we are getting false here. Alright, so now what I want to do, on click of this button, I want to change this state variable from false to true and vice versa. So if it is true, it will be false. If it is false, it will be true. How we are going to do that? Now we have to basically achieve this on click of this particular button. So here we need to basically take a on click event. Now here you can give any name you want. So I'll give this one as handle toggle text. So now this function we need to create. So we'll create here function handle toggle text, and here what you need to basically do, we need to take this set state method which is a set toggle text. Now this will, what it will do, basically this will dispatch a action which will automatically update this state here. So for example, what I want to do, I want to basically make this toggle text from false to true and true to false. So what simply we can pass, we can do like not equals toggle text. So that means if it is false, it will be true. If it is true, it will be false. So first time it is now false. Let's see what will happen. If I now clear this, click on this, so now this is true. Click here, this is false, true, false. Alright, so now simply we can use a ternary and we can give the condition that if the toggle text, if this is true, then only I want to render this, or else I don't want to render anything, so it will be null. So let's format this, save it. So now first time you are not able to see because this is false. Click here, we are able to see. Click here, this is working fine. What will happen if I now change this one from false to true? So initial state is true, that means first time if I now refresh this, you will be able to see this one. Alright, click here, false, true, false, true. This is working fine. So in sum up, UseState will take a state variable, it will take a setState method, and then you have to use the UseState hook, which will basically take a initial state, and then whatever activity that you want to do, you have to basically take this setState method, which will update your state variable. So this is a very simple one. Now let's understand this one with a little bit more complex example. Let's explore another example. So here you can see that we are having two very simple inputs. Now whenever user will be typing something, I want to basically render that value here. Same for whenever they will be selecting any city here, I want to render that city value. So for this one, the first thing what we need to do, again, this will be the same process. You have to take your state variable, the setState method, and the initial state. Now in this case, your initial state will be, there will be a name, and you have to also store a city. So what you need to do here, I'll take a object, and here I'll take name, which will be empty for the first time, and then there will be city, which will be also empty. So this is your initial state. Now you'll notice here one thing, that the same name and city, this is the name of this input and this is the name of the select that I've given here. So now what you need to do, we'll take variable, and here I'll give this one name as, for example, form data. This will be your state variable. And now it's always a good practice to write your setState method starts with set, so that it implies that okay, you are basically updating your state variable with this method. And here I'll give set form data. Now here again you have to take the UseState and you have to pass the initial state. That's it. Now let's save it. Now what we need to do, whenever user will be typing something, we need to basically update the value. That means this is also user input action. So here you need to take a onChange method. So I will take here onChange, and let's give this one name as handle name change. Same for the select. Here I'll take onChange and we'll give this one as handle city change. Now let's go there and we'll create these two methods. So this will be handle name change. Now this will basically will eject an event. Same for your handle city change. So this will also give an event. Now from this event, what you will be basically able to extract the targeted value, or basically the user whatever they will be typing, you'll be able to extract that value from the event.target.value. Now because these all are very simple concepts, so I'm not explaining all of this, but let's say how we are going to update this set form data. So here what I'm going to do, I'll take set form data. I'll notice here one thing, that you can't directly update the state, because here you have multiple initial state. So what you need to do, for example, let's say you are having something in your city. Whenever you'll be updating the name, you have to keep the city value as it is. So in that case, what you need to do, basically whatever initial state you are having, that you need to first store, and on top of it you have to update the current variable. I hope you are getting. So now because in this case we are updating the name, so first we'll keep the city as it is and we'll update the name. When we will be updating the city, we'll keep the name as it is and we'll update the city. How we are going to do that? So here simply, because this is object, first we'll destructure our original form data. Alright, so this will be our form data. Now here I'm going to do, because we are updating the name, obviously there is a much better way of doing this one, so we are going to discuss, but here directly we'll update the name, and this will be our event.target.value. Alright, now let's save it. Now the same goes for this one also. We'll do set form data, and here we'll do form data, and here I'm going to update the city, which will be again event.target.value. Let's save it. Now let's log here form data and let's see what we are getting. Alright, so first time name and city is empty. I'll type something here, my name. So you can see that this name is getting updated. If I select a city, so city is now Bengaluru. If I select Mumbai, this is now Mumbai. If I now change the names to something else, you can see the city is still Mumbai, only the name is getting updated. If I update the city is updated, name is as it is. So now what you can do simply, so here we can basically take here like we'll do something like, let's take another div, and inside this we'll do update form data, or let's do this one as name is. So name will be your form data dot name, and then we'll do city is, so this will be your form data dot city. All right, so you can see that also let's give this one as a p so that it will be easy to understand. All right, now if I update this one, so this is getting updated. If I change the city, this is also getting updated. Now let's say how another way that how we can do that directly instead of creating these methods individually. So we can basically write this one directly here. So what we can do simply, we'll cut this one and we'll take a method. All right, now here, because this will give you an event, so we'll take the event, and what we can do simply, we'll do set form data. So here first we'll destructure our form data, and then here either we can do like name is equal to event dot target dot value. All right, this will also work. The same thing you have to do it for the city also. Instead of name, this will be city. Now let's save it. Now let's refresh this. Now this will also work. So you can see that this is also working. Now another way is that because here you can see that you'll be basically getting the event.target.name. All right, so what you can do, you can basically dynamically take this one like this. So this will be your event.target.name. Now event.target.name, it will automatically pick up from this name that you have given in this input. That means instead of explicitly writing the name, you are targeting the event.target.name, which is basically name here, this value. So this will also work, and same you can do it for here also, because in this case event.target.name is nothing but city. Now let's save it and update, and you can see that this is also working. All right, so this is all about our first and very useful hook that you will be using most of the times whenever you have to basically manage any kind of component state. Now let's move on to the second hook, which is UseEffect. All right, so let's start with the second hook, and this is called the UseEffect. So UseEffect is another very important hook that basically used to manage any kind of side effects in your component. So for example, let's on page load, you want to do certain operations, you want to call an API. So in that case, you can use this particular hook, and also you can do some other things also. So you can see that here basically we are having this button and there is a count. Now let's say whenever this count will be going to till 5, I want to do something. I want to render something in the UI. So that means in this case you have to track this particular count value, and you have to check whenever this count value will be 5, I want to do that certain operation. So let's see how we are going to achieve this using UseEffect. So the first thing is that we have to import UseEffect from React, and now here we'll take this UseEffect. Now this will take a callback. So you can see that this is the effect callback, and here the very important, this will take a dependency list, and based on this dependency this will behave the same way. So for example, this dependency will be empty array. That means now this UseEffect will only run once on page load. And now if I now log here, let's say I'll do console.log, and we'll do run only once. Notice here, if I now save this, so you can see that we are getting this one on page load. All right, so that means this will now only run once. If I now change this count value, that means the state is changing, but this UseEffect is not getting rendered. Now let's see what will happen if I now don't give this dependency array here. Now another very important point is that you can basically take multiple UseEffect. Now for example, let's say whenever you'll be creating very complex applications, so in that case, if you write all of your logic into one UseEffect, so code will be very messy. So it is always better to divide your code into multiple UseEffects, so that's not an issue. All right, so let's see if I now take here UseEffect, and I don't give anything here, and just I'll do console.log, and I'll do hello world. Save this. So you can see that we are getting hello world on page load. Now what will happen if I now change this count value? So that means this is now getting every time this component is getting rendered, this use effect is also getting called. Alright, so here you can see that there is no dependency. Alright, so now let's see how this dependency will work. So what I want to do basically, whenever this count value will be 5, I want to render some text. Alright, so let's see how we can do that. So the first thing is that I will take a h3 here, and let's give this one name as hello world only. Alright, now you can see that we are getting this hello world, but I don't want to render this hello world on page load or at the start. I want to show this one whenever this count value will be 5. So let's see how you can do that. So here in this case, the first thing is that I will take another state that will basically manage whether I want to show this text or not. So here we'll do const and we'll do show text, and this will be set show text, and this will be use state of false. Now this false is basically your initial state. So now what I want to do basically, this whenever this show text is true, then only I want to render this text, or else this will be null. Now let's format and save this. Now you can see that we are not getting this text. So now I want to do, whenever this count value will be 5, I want to basically make this show text variable as from false to true. So in this case, whenever there is a dependency on some state variable, here you can basically take another use effect. So now I'll take another use effect, and here instead of this empty dependency, now which dependency you need to basically take. So you can see that because currently this is depending on this count value, so count value whenever it will be 5, I want to show this text. So here this count will be your dependency. I hope you are getting. So that means now what I can do, simply we can check if this count is equal to 5, that means the count value is 5. I want to make this set show text as true. Now let's save it. Alright, so now let's see what is happening here. So now first time this will be false. Now let's see if I increase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now this is true, and you are basically able to see this text. So this is how you need to basically take this dependency, and based on this dependency you can do certain operations. Now let's see how we can basically call an API using this use effect on page load and on based on this particular dependency also. So for this API call, we are going to use this dummy JSON API endpoint. So let's see which endpoint that we can use. So let's fetch these all products. Alright. So let's copy this endpoint. Now what we can do, because we need to basically render all the products on page load, that means it should run only once, so we can take with empty dependency. So here what we can do, simply we can basically call a method. So we'll do async function, and this will be fetch all products, and here we'll take a try block and catch. For now we'll just log the error, and here we'll do const response await fetch. We'll pass the endpoint, and we'll do result, which will be await response.json. Alright, now we need to also store the products, so we'll take another state here. So this will be our product list, and set product list, which will be use state of empty array. Now here what we can do, simply, so you can see that we'll be getting these products. So we'll copy this, so we'll check if this result and result dot products true, so we'll do set products list will be result dot products. Alright, that's it. So now what we need to do, so that means we can simply call this method on page load inside this use effect. So that means this will run only once. Now let's call this method here. Now let's see what will happen if I go to network tab. The point I'll save this, so you can see that we are getting this products endpoint, and here basically we are getting the list of products. Alright, So now what we can do, let's say I want to render this title here. So we can go here and simply take a UL, and inside this we will do product list dot map, and we'll do item. Simply we'll take a li and we'll render the item dot title, and also we'll give some check that if the product list and product list dot length, if this is true, greater than 0, then only I want to do this, or else this will be null. So now let's format and save this. So we are getting the title here. Alright, now let's say what I want to do, instead of calling this one on the page load, I want to do whenever this count value will be 10. So now pause the video and try to do by your own. So what you need to do, so instead of, so you can see that you are already doing the logic here, that if the count is 5, I want to do this thing. Now obviously you can do the same thing here also, but because we are learning this one from scratch, so let's do one thing. We'll take another use effect so that it will be easy for you to understand. Alright, obviously again I'm repeating, you can do the same thing in this use effect also, but this is just to keep everything simple. So again I'll take another use effect, I'll keep the count as a dependency, and I'll check if the count is equal to 10, then only I want to call this method, which is fetch all products, and I'll just comment out from here. Now let's see what will happen. Save this. So I'm not able to get anything, and then you'll notice I'll do 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, I'll do 10. See, this is getting called and you're getting the result here. Alright, so this is basically how you can use UseEffect to manage any kind of side effects. Now here you can also do a cleanup. So let's say you want to do some kind of cleanup once the component will unmount. So to do any kind of cleanup, what you can do, you have to basically return a callback function inside this UseEffect. Alright, so this will be a callback, and inside this you can do any kind of cleanup that you want to do for this particular component. Alright, so this is all about our UseEffect hook. Now let's move on to the next one. Let's start with our third hook, and this is my favorite hook, and that is UseContext. So context is basically a concept in React where you will be managing your state globally, and UseContext is a hook where you will be basically consuming that state from the context, and based on that you want to do certain operation in your component. So let's understand this one with a very simple example. So here you can see that we are having a UseContext component which has a button where we will be basically able to change the theme, and then there is two separate component, and these both are standalone components, so there is no direct connection. So you can see that I have this component 1, which is, let's say, login component, and then component 2, which is a registration component, and these all the component I am basically rendering in the app.js. What I want to do basically, whenever I will be clicking on this particular button, I want to change the color of this button, same for this button, and also the text color. Alright, now in this case what we are going to do, we will be managing the state globally using context, and then we want to extract that state in both the components, and based on that we want to change the style. So let's see how we are going to do that. So the first thing is that to create a context, you have to basically create your context, and here what we can do, simply let's do one thing. Inside the source I'll create another folder, and I'll give this one name as context, and here we'll do index.js. Now the first step is that you have to basically create your context. So here you can give any name you want. So we also need to export this context because we are going to use this one, and I'll give this one name as global context. So whatever state we'll be managing in this globally in this particular context. So to create a context, we have to import this create context from React, and here you have to basically give the initial value or the default value. So I'll give the default value as null for the first time. Now next thing is that what we need to do, we have to basically create the global state. Now why you need to create the global state? So this is a very important interview questions, because this is a state which we are managing globally. So that means in this app.js, this app component is the combination of all the sub components that we are having in this particular component. So for example, let's say you can see that we are currently having 1, 2 and 3 component, but as the component or basically application will grow, these components will also basically increase. So in that case, what we need to do, we have to basically create a global state, and then we have to wrap our app.js into that global state, so that this context, or basically the global state that will be managing from this file, that we will be able to access in all the nested components. So that is the main reason. So let's see how we are going to do that. So here I'll create a function, and I'll give this one name as global state. So this will be a global state, and now this will receive the children as a prop. Now what is this children? This children is basically all the nested components that we will be having in this app.js. So that means this, all of this, all right, all these are nested children that the children of this global state that will be passing here, so in this file. And here what we are going to do will basically return, so we'll return this global context. Now this will basically eject a provider, a consumer, and there is a display name which is basically a optional property. So now this will be a provider, and here I'll be passing this all the children components that will be receiving from our app.js, or basically the root index.js. So that's it. Now here in this provider you have to basically pass a value. All right, now this value will be an object. So for now I'll be passing this one as an empty object. So now this is your global state. Now what we need to do, we'll do export default, and we'll do global state. Sorry, this will be export. All right, so that means we have exported this global state. So now how we are going to use this global state? So I already mentioned that we have to basically wrap this global state in our index.js, which is basically wrapping this app. So here I'll cut it, and then we'll import our global state, and then we'll pass this app. So now what is happening? So now you can see that this app component we are passing as a children to this global state, which is basically this children it will be receiving, and this app component is the combination of all the child components that we are having. All right, so this is the step. Now this is done. So let's say now what we want to do, we'll be managing a state in this component, and that will be a theme, and then it will be a set theme. So here I want to take this theme as UseState, and this theme will be first time, let's say light. So this is our theme which we can basically able to access in all the children components. So let's see how we are going to do that. Now you want to basically pass this theme property into this value, which will be your context value. So here I'll copy this, and I'll pass this theme and also this set theme. Now let's format this. Now let's see, let's go to our use context, and here let's say I want to do something. I want to get this theme and set theme value. So how we are going to do that? Now here this UseContext hook comes into picture. So to get that context value, you have to basically get that from using UseContext. So let's see how this will work. So we'll do something like this. We'll do context, we'll do get context value, and this will be use context, and here you have to pass the context. So you can see that this will receive a React context. So here you can see that we are already having this global context. So this is our context name. So here I'll do global context. Now let's log this, and let's see what we are getting in this context value. So save this, we'll go to our console. We are getting an object, and here we are getting a theme which is light, and there is a set theme method which is basically a React dispatch method. Now from where this is coming? So this is coming from this value that you have passed here. All right, so that means now you are able to basically extract this one. So instead of doing like this, it's always better to destructure. So let's say I want to only get the set theme. So here we can simply take this set theme. All right, now what we can do, simply let's say if the theme is light, I want to make this one dark, and if this is dark, I want to make this one light. So I'll also take the theme here, and then in this button I'll take on click, and we'll directly do set theme, and we'll simply check if the theme, if this is equal to light, so I want to make this one dark, or else I will make this one light. Let's format this. Now let's see, here I'll just log this theme and save this. Let's see what you're getting. So you can see that we are getting light. Now what will happen if I click on this change theme? So now this is dark, light, dark, light. So that means what we are doing basically on click of this button we are changing the theme. Now this is very simple. So you can go to this individual component, although you can see that we don't have any direct connection between these components. So this is the advantage and beauty of this use context, or basically the overall concept of this context, and this is one of my absolute favorite feature of React. And now what we can do, simply let's say I'll take this theme. So we'll again do the same thing. We'll do theme will be equal to use context of global context, and then here we'll do directly, we'll take a style, and we can simply check here something like this, that if this theme is equal to let's say light, or let's do this on dark, and here so here we'll pass a background color. So we'll do background color as black, and we'll do color as white. Alright, so if this is dark, I'm doing background color black, color is white, and then I'll do the opposite. If this is light, I'll do background color as let's say yellow, and I'll do the color as black. Let's save it. Let's see what is happening. If I click here, see this is getting changed, right? Click here, and this is working fine. The same thing we can do in the component 2 also. So I'll again do the same thing. So I'll do const, this will be theme, which will be use context of global context, and here I'll do the same thing. So I'll do style, here we'll do theme if this is equal to let's say light, and first we'll do for dark. So if this is dark, let's say I want to do background color, I'll do something different. So I'll do this one as red, and I'll do the color as I'll do what we can do, for example blue, whatever, or else I'll do background color. If this is light, I'll do background color as green, and color I'll do orange. Let's see what is happening now. I'll now save this. See now on page this is already getting changed, because first time this is light. I'll click here, this is getting changed, this is also getting changed. See, if I refresh this page, this is on the first time this is light, click here, this is working fine. So this is the overall concept, and this is pretty simple. You just have to practice. So whatever state that you'll be managing, you'll be adding this state here, you'll be passing the state in this value, and then you'll be able to extract that value using this UseContext hook. So that's all for this particular hook. Now let's move on to the next one. Alright, so let's understand UseReducer Hook. So UseReducer you can basically say as the alternative of UseState. So whenever you are having some kind of complex state scenario, you can use this UseReducer Hook. So let's see how we are going to do this one. So you can see that we are basically having 4 buttons, and on click of each and every button we are going to basically manage some counter state. And you'll notice one thing is that we are keeping each and every example very simple. The reason is because this will definitely going to help you to understand the concept very easily, and also this video is created from an interview perspective. So let's say you are having some React interview and you want to revise all the hooks concept, then if you are practicing with some very simple example, it will going to help you, believe me or not. So let's see how we are going to implement this one. So the first thing is that we need to basically import UseReducer obviously, but before that this will basically take some of the steps that you need to follow. So the first thing is that there will be a state. So this will basically hold all the component state. Then there will be a dispatch method. Now this is very important. Now this dispatch method will basically dispatch certain properties which will this UseReducer, or basically the reducer function that you will be creating, that will receive. But before that, first let's use our UseReducer. Now here you can see that this UseReducer will basically receive a reducer. So you can see that this will receive a reducer, and also there will be a initial state. So here I'll pass a reducer, which will be our reducer function, and then it will take a initial state. Now we already know the concept of initial state. So for this one I'm going to take a initial state, which will be, so here I'm going to take a count which will be 0. So now this is my initial state. Now here I'm going to basically take our reducer. So here I'm going to create a reducer. So this will be my reducer function. Reducer will simply receive a state, and also it will receive an action. Alright, now we are going to basically understand this one, but before that you can see that this is our state variable and this is our dispatch function. Alright, now let's see, log here this state here, and let's see what we are getting. So the first thing is that inspect, go to console, so we are getting object, and here we are getting count is 0. So this is our initial state. Now here what we want to do, basically whenever I'll be clicking on this each and every button, I want to dispatch certain action to this particular reducer. Now in this action there will be identified. Now this identifier is basically a type, and based on this type you will be deciding what functionality that you want to do. For example, if I click on this increase count button, I want to increase the count. If I click on this decrease count, I want to decrease the count. So that is the reason here I'll take a on click and we will basically call this dispatch. Now this dispatch will be a function, and here I'll be passing a type. So let's say I'll pass a type, this will be add. Alright, so that means we are basically telling that whenever I'll click on this particular button, I want to do a add functionality, or basically I want to increase the count. So let's see what will happen if I log here this state and this action. Alright, so now let's save this. Now let's see what we are getting in this state. So now I'll refresh this, and now notice if I click here, see on line number 10, so here we are getting state which is 0, and then there is a type of add, and undefined because we are not returning any updated state, because of that we are getting undefined. But what will happen if I now simply copy this, and here I'll pass, because this is decrease, so I'll do, let's say, subtract. Save it. Now notice if I click on this one, so you're getting a type. So now we'll notice what we can do. Simply we can take a switch, and based on this action.type we will be able to differentiate that, okay, on click of this button I want to add, on click of this button I want to subtract. So here I'll do a switch, and here I'll do switch based on this action.type. I hope you're getting, because this is the type we are getting. So now here I'll be getting add, and here I want to return something. Then I'll be adding another case, and this will be subtract. I want to return something. Again I'll do another case, and this will be our reset. So we are having a reset button, and then there is a show count. So we'll do another case, and this will be show count. And in default always we should return the state. Now here, for each and everything that whatever functionality we want to do, we need to return the updated state. So how we can do that? So simply whenever I'll be adding this one, so first I'll take our state, and then because we are adding, so we'll take our count, because that is our state variable name, and we'll do state.count plus 1. So that means each and every time we are clicking, we are basically updating the count value. Similarly for subtract, what we'll do, we'll again do state, and then we'll do count, and this will be state.count minus 1. Then we'll be having reset. So for reset we'll again do state, and then we'll do simply count will be 0. Now we'll go here, and then we'll copy this, and we'll pass here type as reset, and here I'll pass this one as show count. Now for show count, what we want to do, basically we want to hide or toggle this count value here. So for this one we'll take another state which will be show count flag, and this will be, let's say, true for the first time. Now here on this show count, what we want to do, we'll do state, and then we'll do show count flag will be not equal to state dot show count flag. That means we are toggling. Now let's save it. Now let's save what is happening, and here we want to render the count value. So we'll do count is, and this will be our state dot count. Alright, so now let's save it, and now let's see what we are getting. Alright, so now we are getting count is 0. So if I click here, count is increasing, decreasing, and this is resetting. Now what we want to do, you want to basically give the logic here that if this count flag is true, so we'll copy this, then only I want to render. So we'll do if this state dot show count flag, if this is true, then only I want to render this, or else this will be null. Now let's format this, save it. So first time this is 0, I'll increasing, click here. Now I can see that this is hiding, click here. Now this is again, it is showing, decreasing, reset, and this is working fine. So this is how you need to use UseReducer. So I'll just recap everything. So first you need to take a state variable which will basically store all the updated state in your component. Then there will be dispatch method. Dispatch method will basically dispatch a action which will consist of this type, and this is mandatory because based on this type only you will be differentiating that what case you need to run, and based on that it will return the updated state. And then basically in the UseReducer you have to take the reducer, which will be simply a function which will take the state and the action. Based on this action dot type it will do something and it will return the updated state. And also you have to take the initial state which will hold all the initial state value for this particular component. So that's all for this particular hook, which is UseReducer. Now let's move on to the next one. Alright everyone, so let's understand another very important hook, and that is called UseRef. So you can see that the definition of UseRef is basically, this is a React hook that lets you reference a value that's not needed for rendering. And also with this particular hook you will be basically able to manage any kind of DOM elements. So let's see how we are going to use this one. So for this one, the first thing is that let's say we are having a value, and that is my count value. Now to use this one, obviously we need to import it from React. Now again you can see that this will return a mutable reference object, and here you will be able to access this current property, and then you have to basically pass initial value just like you have passed in UseState. So here I'll pass initial value of 0. Alright, now here I'll have a button, and this is click me, and I want to do something. On click of this I'll have a method here. Alright, now I'll create this method. Now here what I want to do, basically I want to increase this value by 1. How we are going to do that? Now here you can see that this is basically mutable reference object, which is a type of number. So what we can do, we can simply take this count value. Now again I has already mentioned that this will give you the current value, and now I want to increase this count value by 1 every time I'll click on this button. Now let's see what will happen if I now log this count value dot current. Let's save it. I'll see that click here. Now you can see that we'll be able to basically get the updated count value. Alright, so this is one concept. Now let's understand two more. So let's say we are having a div and with hello world, and there is a class name of hello. And now you want to access this particular div on page load. Alright, how you are going to do that? So for example, you can do like anything with this particular div. To access this one, you need to basically give a reference to this particular div. So I'll give this one as div reference. Now again we need to create this div reference. So I'll do const div reference will be of UseRef. And now because we want to access on page load, so we'll do UseEffect. And now simply log this. Let's do const get div reference, and this will be our div reference dot current, and log this get div reference. Now let's save it. Alright, so you can see that you are able to basically access this element only. Now whatever you want to do, you will be able to basically do your operation here. Now this is one thing. Now another thing I just want to mention, and that is a very important interview question also. So for this one we'll take another input, and here I'll take a type as text, and placeholder, let's say enter some points. Alright, what I want to do basically on page load, I want to give some focus to this particular input. Now again this is the same concept. So first you need to take a reference. Let's say this will be our input reference. Let's copy this, and then we'll do const input reference, which will be UseRef. Now here we'll do UseEffect and on page load we'll simply do input reference dot current and we'll do focus. So that means on page load we want to do focus. So now let's save it. I'll see if I refresh this page. See, now this is getting focused, right? You can see that. One more very important point is that when the page will load for the first time, that means until unless all the DOM elements are getting rendered in the DOM tree, this reference will be undefined, and this is a very important interview questions also. See what will happen if I now just log this info reference dot current. Let's save it. Now let's refresh this. See, first time on line number 26 this is undefined, and the reason is because when we are loading this one for the first time, that time this browser is still the paint process is basically going on. So paint is one of the process, so until unless this paint process will be completed, all the DOM elements will not be rendered. So that is the reason you are getting undefined, because this input is not yet created in the DOM tree. So that is the reason, because this use effect is using this callback. So that is the reason once the DOM elements are getting rendered, that is the reason you are not getting any undefined here. So if I now log here this input reference dot current, so you'll be able to basically see this one. If I now refresh this, so you'll see here it is undefined, but on line number 24 inside this use effect you are basically getting always able to access this input reference or this input element here. So this is all about very basic understanding of UseRef. Now let's move on to the next one. Alright, so let's understand another hook, and this is called UseLayoutEffect. Now, as you already discussed the UseEffect, so this hook is almost similar to UseEffect, but there is a slight difference. So the difference is that whenever the component is basically getting rendered, there is a process that we call as paint. So UseEffect is basically called once the paint process is completed by the browser. On the other side, UseLayoutEffect will be called when the component is rendered, but until unless the browser will complete the paint process, it will not wait. Before that only these hooks will be getting called. So let's see with some example. Now also you'll see that these both UseLayoutEffect and UseEffect are almost similar. So I'll take here UseEffect, and then let's take a log here, and we'll do UseEffect called. Now to use the UseLayoutEffect, this is exactly same. So this will also take a callback, and here also you can pass the dependencies. And let's log here UseLayoutEffect called. If I now save this, you'll see that both are basically getting first time, alright, and almost at the same time, and it is very difficult to differentiate. But because this LayoutEffect hook is basically called once the paint is completed by the browser, so this can be very helpful even let's say you want to do some kind of DOM operations. So in that case you will be able to use these hooks very easily. So for example, let's say we are having a div, and then I'll have a text of hello world. If I now save this and refresh this page, you can see that we are basically immediately getting the text because the component is getting rendered and the paint process is completed. What I want to do, I want to display this text after 1 second. So that means I want to manipulate some of the style of this particular text. So how we are going to do that? So in that case, we have already discussed the UseRef, so we will be basically able to give a reference to this particular div, and then using the current property we will be able to manipulate that inside this UseLayoutEffect. So let's see how we are going to do that. So first I'll take a ref here, and I'll give this one name as div ref. Let's copy this, and then we'll do const div ref will be UseRef. And here now what we can do, simply we'll do const get div ref current, and this will be our div ref dot current. And now let's log this and let's see what we are getting. So we'll do log here get div ref current. So we are basically able to get or access the div element. So now what we can do, first we'll do get div ref current dot style, and dot opacity. So first I'll do opacity of 0, and then I'll take a set timeout. So that means let's after 1 second I want to display this. So I'll do get div ref current dot style dot opacity is equal to 1, and also let's say I want to give a color of, we'll give a color of orange, and let's see what is happening. Let's save it. See, so now you are able to basically see this one, and if I go here, so we are getting opacity of 0, color, let's make this one red. Alright, so now you'll notice one thing. Once I refresh this page, first time this is opacity 0, immediately this is becoming opacity 1. So this is a very simple one. So just want you to understand that you will be able to do any kind of DOM manipulation inside this use layout effect if you want to do it. Now another example I can give you, let's say what I want to do, I'll have a input and we'll take a type of text and we'll give a value of Sangam. I'll save this. So you're getting this value here. Alright, now what I want to do, I want to change this value on page load. So let's say I'll take a reference. So I'll do ref, and this will be input ref. I'll copy this and let's create a ref here. So we'll do use ref, and then inside this I will basically change the value. So we'll do input.current.value to something else. We'll do John Doe, very famous name. So let's save it. So this is getting changed to John Doe. Now notice one thing, what will happen if I log this value here. So we'll do input ref dot current. Now let's save this and let's see what we are getting. So I'll refresh this. So you'll see this is getting changed to John Doe, but here if I go to this input, this still showing the old value. Alright, so that means this is not getting updated. So this is basically the very simple difference, that this use layout effect will run once component is getting rendered, but before the browser will complete the paint process. On the other side, use effect will run after all the component will be rendered, and also there will be a state update and the paint process will be completed. So that's all for this particular one. Now let's move on to the next one. Alright, so next two hooks that we are going to learn, the first one is UseMemo and UseCallback. Now both the hooks are basically used for performance improvement purposes. So the first one is UseMemo. So you can see that the basic idea of UseMemo is that it allows us to remember a particular value. Now what exactly we mean by that? So let's understand this one with this example, and it will be very easy to understand. So you can see that what we are currently doing, we are basically fetching some list of data from a API endpoint. Alright, now here you can see that we are having a state and we are storing the data in this data state variable. So now let's log this here. So we'll do data. So you can see that we are getting this 30 data. Now what I want to do, I want to filter this data and I want to, let's say, render only those records where the price is greater than 50. So first I'm going to implement this one. So here what I will do, so I'll create a function and I'll give this one name as filter products by price. Alright, now this will receive the products. And here what I'll do, I'll just return this get products dot filter, and here we'll do item, and here I will do item dot price has to be greater than 50. Also let's give some condition here. If the length is greater than 0, then only I want to do this one, or else this will be empty. That's it. Now here I will go and then take a UL and we'll just render this filter products by price. This will receive the get products, which is basically this data that we are having, and then filter products, or I think we can directly now map this one. So you'll do map here because this will basically return the array of objects we are filtering based on price. So we'll do item and we can simply return li, and we'll do item dot title. let's save it. So you can see that we are getting only these many products. So all these products have a price of greater than 50. Now this is not the point. Now what I want to do, I'll take a totally different state which don't have any direct connection to this particular state, or basically this function that we are writing here, and let's see what will happen. So I'll take another state. Let's give this one name as theme set theme, which will be UseState of false. And here I have a button, and on click of this button I want to toggle the theme. So I'll do button, and this will be toggle theme, and on click of this button I will do set theme will be not equal to theme, and here I will render if the theme is, let's take a paragraph, or let's take a h2, and I'll render if the theme is true, I'll simply show here light, or else I'll show here dark. Now let's save it, and you can see that if I click here, this is changing. Now what will happen if I just log here that this is getting called? I'll see what will happen. Now let's save this. So first time this is getting called, this function is getting called, that is correct. What will happen if I now click on this button? Now notice one thing, these button don't have any connection on this API call or basically with this data. Click here, this is getting called again. Click here, getting called again. Now for now this is a very small amount of data. Now it is also like mentioned in the React documentation also, is that you don't have to use UseMemo and UseCallback all the times. You only needs to use these two hooks whenever this is absolutely necessary. Let's say you are having large amount of data. In that case, let's say you are managing multiple state and there is no direct connection between one state with another state. So in that case, what you can do, you can memorize a particular value using this UseMemo, and in this case also you can give some dependency that okay, I only want to run this function whenever this data value will change, or else I don't want to run, because why would I want to run this if I click on this button, right? Because there is no direct connection. So let's say how we are going to do that. So here you have to basically memorize this value. Alright, so how we can do this, we'll do const memorize filter, we'll give filter product by price. So we are memorizing this value using this UseMemo. Alright, and here you need to take this UseMemo, which will take a function, and here now inside of this I'll call this filter products by price, and here you need to pass the get products, which is data, and now you need to basically give the dependency, and UseMemo will only recompute the memorized value when one of the dependency will change. So here I'll give the dependency as data, because this data is, this get products is dependent on this data. That's it. Now instead of calling this function, I'll simply call this memorize this filter products by price. Save this. We'll be getting the same result. Alright, now let's click here. See, the function is not getting called. So this function is now not getting called. The reason is because we are now managing a totally different state, or basically updating a totally different state variable which don't have any direct connection with this one. So this is all about the UseMemo. Whenever you need to basically memorize a value based on some particular dependency, you can use this UseMemo hook. Alright, so now that's all for this particular hook. Now let's move on to the next one. Alright everyone, so now let's quickly understand what basically UseCallback is. Now just like we have understood UseMemo, UseCallback is almost similar. The only difference is that UseMemo will memorize a value, on the other side UseCallback will memorize a callback, or basically a function. So let's see or understand this one with this very simple example, and I can guarantee you that this is going to help you, because if you're getting this particular question since interview, then you will be able to explain this one with this simple example. So here you can see that we are having this component, and here having two state, one is count1 and count2, and then there is a reusable component that I am using, which is a button component or child component. So this will render a button, and which will have a text which will receive, and then it will also receive an on click as a prop, which I'll be passing in this button on click. Alright, now here what I'll do, I'll just log here that child is rendered, and then I'll pass this text. Let's save it. Now you can see that child is rendered, both button 1 and button 2. Alright, and I'll go here and I'll give a on click, and here I'm going to do set count, and I'll do count plus 1, copy this, and I'll pass it here, and I'll do count 2, and this will be my set count 2. Now what will happen if I click here? Both the component or child component is getting rendered, although this button 2 state is not getting updated. If I click here similarly, now button 2 is updated, button 1 state or count value is not getting updated, still it is getting rendered. Alright, so that means we are rendering all the child components, although the state is not getting rendered for that particular button click. So how we are going to prevent this one? So in that case, this function that we are passing to this component as a prop, we can basically wrap this function inside UseCallback, and we can give the same dependency that okay, if the count 1 will change, then only you render this component. If the count 2 change, you render the second child component, or basically the child or button 2 component. So let's see how we are going to do that, and this is pretty simple. Now again, this is very important that you should not use or make a habit of this particular thing that I'm going to use callback and UseMemo all the time. This is not an ideal scenario. You can also read the official React doc. If it is absolutely necessary, then you can obviously use this one. So we'll do const and we'll do memorize. I will do set count 1 function, and here you just have to call UseCallback, and we are going to basically pass a callback. Here we'll do the same thing, set count is count 1 plus 1, and here you need to pass the dependency. So in that case, if count to 1 will change, then only I want to do that. Same, I'll do memorize set count 2 function, which will be UseCallback of set count 2. This will be count 2 plus 1, and here I'll pass the count 2 as a dependency. That's it. Now instead of passing this one, we just have to pass this one. So we'll do memorize function 1, and this will be my memorize function 2. Alright, so this is done. Now next thing what we are going to do, we'll go here and then we'll wrap this component into memo. So we're going to import this one with memo, and then we'll pass it. Let's save it. Now let's see what is happening. So refresh this. So first time this will be getting rendered. If I click here, only child is rendered and button 1, so that means only the button 1 or the first child is getting rendered, because this value is getting updated. If I click here, now you can see button 2 is getting rendered. Click here, button 1 to click this one, button 2 is getting rendered. So this is the whole process that what we have done. We just wrap this function inside UseCallback, and given the dependency that if the count 1 will only change, then you render that component. If count 2 is getting changed, then render the second component. So that's all for this particular hook. Now let's move on to the next one. Alright everyone, so let's end this particular video by creating one of the custom hooks, and this is one of the very famous interview questions also. So custom hooks are basically, so whenever let's say you are working on a very large application and you have to you have to basically reuse some of the features, so in that case you can create some of the custom hooks. So most popular one is like the one that we are going to create in this one, that is UseFetch. Then you are having use storage, like you'll be basically storing your data in local or session storage. Then you are having use responsive, and lot of others like use outside click, So for example, let's say you are having a model and on click of outside you want to close the model, so that kind of hook that basically you can create. Now here what we are going to do, so this will be UseFetch Hook, so where we'll be basically passing the URL and the options as a parameter, and based on that we'll be automatically getting the data. Now what is the advantage of creating a reusable hook or basically a custom hook? So the only advantage is your code will be much cleaner and you will be basically able to use that particular hook from different component using different parameters. So let's see how we are going to implement this one. So first thing is that we are having this UseFetch, and let's do one thing. So this will be our hook, and this hook, let's say we want to use from some different components. So first we'll be creating this hook. Now let's give this one name as UseFetch. Now here, as I already mentioned, this will be a this will basically receive a URL, and also you will be basically able to pass some options. So let's pass some options here. Now here the first thing I'm going to take a state. This will be my data, and this will be my set data, which will be UseState of empty array. Now here let's say I want to fetch the data on page load. So whenever you need to fetch the data on page load, obviously you need to take UseEffect Hook. So here we'll take our UseEffect, and then I'm going to basically fetch data. Now I'm not going to write this one, we already have in our UseEffect. So here you can see that this is the one, so you can copy this one, we can copy this one, and then we will paste it here. So here we are having fetch data. Now instead of this one I'm going to pass this URL, and then we will be having the options. So this will call the API, this will get the data, and at the end what I'm going to do, I'll just return the data. Obviously if you want, you will be able to manage error or lot of other things. For example, let's say you want to manage a loading state, so that also you can do. So you can take a loading, set loading, and this will be UseState of false, and before calling the API you will do set loading as true, and once we'll get the result, let's say we'll get the result here, so I'm going to cut it. So we'll make set loading as false, and in this data I'm going to pass the result, and at the end I'm going to return the loading as well as the data. As simple as that. Now here I'll just copy this. Now instead of this URL, this hard-coded URL, I'm going to pass the URL that will be receiving here, and also will be able to pass the options. That's it. So now let's format and save this. I'm going to export this. So we'll do export default, use fetch, and this is done. So this is all about the custom hook that you need to create. Now let's say I want to use this hook from a different component. So for example, let's say I'll create another component here. We'll give this one name as UseFetch test .jsx. So we'll create this component, we'll do UseFetch hook test, and we are going to return a div. This will be test, and here I'll return h1. This will be UseFetch hook. Now what we need to do, we just have to call the hook. So here we'll be basically receiving the data and the loading. This will be receiving from UseFetch, and I see that it will receive a URL and also the options. So URL, I'm going to pass this URL, and options will be passed empty for now. Now obviously you'll be able to pass whatever you want to pass here. Now let's see what will happen if I now log here this data and this loading. Let's save it. Now we need to use this in our app.js, so I'll just use it here. So do UseFetch hook test, save this. Awesome. So now you can see that we are getting false. First time this loading state is false, then we are getting this one is true, then once we are getting the result, then again it will be false. Now what we can do, we can simply take the products. So we'll go here and we'll simply render here. We'll take ul and we'll do if data and data dot products and data dot products dot length, if this is greater than 0, so we'll do data dot products dot map, and we'll simply return here item dot title, or else this will be, let's say, no data. So now let's format and save this. So you're getting the data here. If you want, you will be able to show some kind of, like, if the loading is true, we'll return some h1 and we'll do loading data, please wait. Awesome. So now refresh this, you're getting loading data, please wait, and then you are basically getting the data here. So this is how you will be able to basically get the result using a custom hook. So that's all for this particular video. I hope that this video will definitely going to help you to revise all the React hook concept, and I can guarantee you that if you practice this, all of this, it will be very much beneficial for your interview purposes also. So that's all for this particular video. If you like this video, give a like, comment down, and please subscribe to my channel. I'll see you in my next video. Till then, good luck and peace.